Hey guys, Alex here from Pratt Printing Press, and today I've got a very exciting and very special video for you guys. Today's video is a secret. So for today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Me and my wife are going to be celebrating 8 years of marriage, and I wanted to do something special for my wife this year. Now, if you go on the internet and you look up to see what the traditional gift is for an 8th year anniversary, it is bronze. But bronze is kind of like iron, right? And I kind of built an Iron Man suit for me, and well, my wife doesn't have an Iron Man suit, so am I going to make her an entire suit? Rachel, before you get too excited, no, I'm not building an entire suit unless you want one.
Do it.
But for today's video, we're actually going to be making my wife Rachel her very own Iron Man helmet, and this one's actually going to be the rescue helmet worn by Pepper Potts in Avengers Endgame. Let's go ahead and take a look at these files. All right, so when it comes to the files, today we're going to buy my very first set of files from Wireframe 3D. Wireframe 3D is awesome because it actually is several different of the popular 3D modelers that are out there joining forces, and they've made their own site where they are collaborating and working together and putting out an awesome assortment of different files. So you've got people like Walsh or Vec, Bionic Armory, all kinds of different creators in here with their files, collaborating, posting them up here. It's awesome stuff. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to search for rescue. All right, so searching rescue, here are the options that show up. We do have this Vec 3D Iron Man Mark 49 helmet that we could choose, but I'm leaning towards this one right here. It's a motorized Walsh helmet, the rescue version, and Walsh did create the Star Boost helmet that I wear with my suit. So for $5 cheaper and to use the model that I'm more familiar with, I'm going to go with Walsh. And you can see here the files broken down. These look really beautiful. I love right here, you can see these magnet slots for the back that's going to just make the back click on beautifully. And yeah, I'm excited to make this. Look at how pretty it looks. Oh, all right. So I just purchased the files from Walsh 3D on Wireframe 3D, and I've gone ahead and downloaded them onto my computer. I went ahead and threw them into Bamboo Studio, and this right here is what you're going to see. You're going to see all the parts laid out on the build plate. I've got a couple duplicates here because I was playing around with the different vent pieces because they have some that have details and some that don't. And so, but you're looking at something like this. Honestly, not that much going on here. We got 3 big pieces here in the back, and the rest of it is smaller detail pieces. This is also going to mean that I'm going to have to use very, very little tape in this project, which is going to be really nice. I'll actually be able to paint a lot of this without having to tape stuff off, which is ideal. So I'm excited to get this thing printed. Let's go ahead and cue an awesome time lapse printing this stuff. All right, so for this portion of the video, I want to break down what exactly the electronics look like when you're actually going to be motorizing an Iron Man helmet. In this portion of the video, you're probably not going to see my face too much because I really just want you to make sure that you can see everything that's in front of the table as clearly as possible, because It looks like a lot, but it's actually not so bad. Let's get into it. So what we're looking at here is the motorization kit and all of the different bells and whistles, but it all comes down to this right here. This is the Alicia Mark 11, I think, board by Crashworks 3D, and it is this beautifully integrated, built-out motorization kit that has everything plug and play for you. So when you receive it, you're going to receive something like this that'll walk you through it. I think there's even online instructions that they send you as well. And there's an entire Discord community that can help walk you through this stuff. But this is literally going to have plug and play for all of the different things that we need. So literally our power goes here. We have servo 1, servo 2, and the lights for the eyes here. That will all make sense shortly. And then there's a trigger in here somewhere. I think it's the blue. Blue should be trigger. Yep, blue is the trigger. So what tools are you going to want for this? Well, you're definitely going to want a nice wire stripper. You're also going to need a power bank so that you can power this. You're probably going to want some form of adhesive, whether that's glue or tape, whatever your preference is. You are going to need a soldering iron to put some of these pieces together. And then we're also going to need some M3 bolts, which I have right here, actually. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to strip back a little bit more from my power cable here. I want to make sure that my power cable is going to work to feed power to the board. These are ugly. We're going to clean them up later. In fact, this probably isn't even the power. This probably isn't the cable that I'll use for powering. I'll probably wire up one that looks a little bit fancier. This is just a spare one that I had in my drawer that was already cut open, so this is perfect. So I'm going to take my little gator clip thing here, attach red to red, black to black, and set that out right here. Next, I'm going to take the power cable here, and I'm going to hook up the red to red. And I'm going to hook up the black to black here. And when I plug this in here, and then I plug my power cable into my battery pack, it should power up the board. Yep, there we go, red light. So we have power, we know that that is working. We're gonna go ahead and remove that for now. We're gonna leave that wired up as much as we can. Next up, I wanna talk about the servos. We have these two right here. These are MG90S servos, and this is what we're gonna use to actually motorize the helmet. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take two different sets of servos here. The pins go to the board. So we're just going to plug that in here, and we're going to plug it into a board. And then we're going to figure out which one goes where. That'll make sense in just a second. All right. So I now have power plugged in, two servos plugged in. Next up, we're going to talk about the eyes. These are the LED eyes. Now you can either separate these and cut them each individually and have them go to I1, I2, or you can have them integrated together. I'm just going to go ahead and have them integrated together. I am going to save a little bit at the end of this just so that I can, if I wanted to at some point, that can be enough, probably. Yeah, that should be enough. Just so that if I wanted to at some point reuse this, I could add wires and repurpose that. So the light one is going to hook up with cable over here. I'm going to do the same thing, red on red, black on black. Now, I will plug this in. Either one of these boxes down here, the white boxes down here, should do the trick. I'm going to plug it into the bottom one. And then we have one last thing to plug in. We're going to go ahead and plug in our trigger switch. So, once I turn this thing on, you should see a few things happen. The lights should turn on, the servos should spin, and when I touch these two cables together, it should trigger another action, turning off the lights and then making the servos spin the other way around. Okay, so here we go. Lights are on, servos spin. When I hit the trigger, the lights should turn off and the servos should spin again. Yep. Now what I want to do is I want to figure out which servo goes to which arm. So we're going to take these arms that we've 3D printed. I'm just going to stick this guy on here. I believe that's the direction it's going to go. Yeah, like that. And I'm going to hit the trigger again and see which direction these guys spin. So that right there is going to be the open position, and that's the closed position. So this will end up fitting inside the little. This is a little bracket frame thing that we use to store to house the servos. So this one goes in there like that. This one goes in here like so. This is always the funny part where your brain has to just play around with it just a little bit to get it all figured out. My battery pack just died on me. That's okay. This right here should be the position. Let's turn it back on and see what happens. They should stay here. So when I hit the trigger, the arms should go backwards. Yep, arms went backwards. And then if I trigger it again, they'll go forwards. That means, knowing the way that it's going to fit inside the helmet, this is going to sit here like so. So I'm going to go ahead and mark each of these arms. This one's going to be my right arm. This one is going to be my left arm. So let's do this. So now you have a general understanding of how the board works. But now I want to focus on getting these electronics and moving them from here into here. I know this looks like a huge mess right now, but once we get rid of some of these gator clips and all that and start actually soldering in, we can clean this up pretty nicely, and we're going to have a nice little self-contained system. Now, within the actual print, you're going to see on the face mask, which, first of all, look at the beautiful details of this thing. I love this. Walsh 3D. Good job. But inside, you see all the beautiful details, but you also see these different mounting points. These two at the bottom of the mask are going to be for the helper arms, so that as it is raising up, it's going to still stay somewhat attached to the helmet. And then we're going to get two different arms, the arms that are attached to our servos currently. Those are going to connect here, and then the servo mount itself is going to attach itself at the top here on top of this, in the inside of this dome. Using this piece here, it will essentially sit like so, once I figure out the actual placement. So let's focus on moving this into the helmet and make sure that the helmet itself is going to move up. Once we know that everything is working correctly and that everything is motorized correctly, then we can take apart all the parts, finish sanding them, priming them, painting them, and then once everything is painted, then we'll install them. But you really want to play around at this stage before you have a beautiful paint job. That way, as you're tweaking things and as you're messing around, you're not going to ruin your beautiful paint job. So let's go ahead and get this stuff inside and see if we can get the mask to lift up. Okay, so now is the moment of truth. I have haphazardly taped in the servos and attached the two helper arms and the arms that are going to connect to the servo here. So I'm going to turn this thing on and see if the mask lifts. Okay, so now we're going to put in the magnets that are going to attach the back of the helmet to the dome here. To do this, we're going to be using 10x2 rounded magnets, and they're literally going to fit into these pre-made slots by the modeler, which is fantastic. Now, if you print these at 100%, most of the time I have found that these holes end up being really tight tolerances. So what I went and did off camera was I just took a Dremel and I just cleaned up a little bit around the edges just to make sure that these would fit in there comfortably. So now what I'm going to do very simply is I'm going to take my magnets and I'm going to take a piece of masking tape and I'm going to just mark one end. This way I know I want all the magnets to go in this way right now because they have to be facing each other eventually, right? So we want to make sure that all of them are the same way. You could put a dot on here with a Sharpie, but sometimes I end up rubbing that off. So I find that this is just the easier way to do that. That's my personal preference. I'm also going to be using CA glue, which is cyanoacrylate glue with an activator. This is basically just super glue that you can instantly activate with this activator so that it instantly cures and hardens, and it's wonderful. So literally what we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of glue in the holes, and then we're going to spray the activator on the magnet so that once I attach the magnet to that glue, it'll instantly have a perfect bond. All right, messy, sticky, disgusting process. But in theory, when we connect these pieces together, they should magnetize. just like that. Yep. Now, there's actually an additional file that's included with this purchase, and that is a nanotech stencil. Here's what it looks like in Bamboo Studio. So, when you buy the file, you're going to see this little square, and it is literally this little nanotech stencil going on. I went ahead and duplicated this, and I chopped it up, and I pieced it back together to make a bigger one that looks like this, so that I can cover more area. So, what does that practically look like? Well, it looks like this. This right here was printed with flexible PLA by FlashForge, and this is going to allow us to actually use the stencil and place it around our 3D printed objects, in this case a helmet, and then we're going to be able to apply paint over the stencil that will bleed through onto the item itself, and then we will apply the final coats of paint that's going to cover the entire surface of the helmet. So it should give a really cool nano effect. Let's go ahead and go to the paint booth and see how this comes out. All right, so now we kind of come down to the big, new, and scary part of today's project. We're going to be applying the nanotech effect to this helmet. Now what I've gone ahead and done is I printed out the larger stencil, and then I ended up adding just some grocery bags around the edges, just to make sure that I've got a little bit more grace for overspray. That way I hopefully don't accidentally coat something white that's not supposed to be white. So we're gonna see. I would rather do this with an airbrush just because that would be a little bit easier to control. But with my test, the airbrush didn't go through the stencil quite as well. So I'm thinking that a rattle can is probably going to get us a better finish as far as the radiance or darkness or whatever of the effect. But we're gonna see. Worst case scenario, if this just ruins the gold, then I'll just paint over the gold and start over. But everything else should be fine. So let's go ahead and give this a try. Okay, I think it looks pretty decent, especially for our first attempt at something like this. Now we're gonna do the big piece. All right, I think we're in business, honestly. Having never done this before, I'm pretty sure that this is gonna come out really good. And I'm gonna let that be. I'm gonna leave that as is. I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm gonna hit it with the next coats, the next colors, and start wrapping up on this project. But again, worst case scenario, I just paint over in gold and restart this stenciling process, but I'm pretty happy with how this came out, and I'm gonna see what happens. So yeah. All right, let's take a minute and talk about paint, specifically which paints I used in this project. If you know me and you've been watching this channel for any amount of time or talked to me in person about it, you'll know that as far as the filler primer that I like to use when I'm sanding and filling in my prints, it's always going to be the Duplicolor filler primer. This stuff is fantastic. This is probably a few dollars more than like a Rust-Oleum filler primer, and it is absolutely worth every extra dollar that you spend on this product. This can goes a lot farther. It covers. So if you're looking for specialty paints and you're not finding it in your big chain stores, try more of the automotive side of things, because chances are some of the automotive chain stores like O'Reilly's or AutoZone might actually carry some of these parts or some of these paints, this stuff. So Once everything is primed and sanded and ready for paint, then you have to decide what's going to be the base color for your helmet, assuming you're painting everything in one base color. And for me, that was Rust-Oleum's. This is just a flat black paint. You're going to find this in most stores with no problem. And this is what I end up using. Now, I wanted a gloss finish, and we're going to talk about the clear coat in just a second. So what I ended up doing was I paired this with a clear coat, which gave me the gloss finish. You could just use a Rust-Oleum or Krylon or whatever brand you want black gloss paint. I use this one because this is what I had on hand, but two, sometimes you actually get a better finish when you're adding a clear coat on top of the flat rather than just going with a glossy can. So that's what I end up doing. I mean, whatever you decide to do for your project is absolutely fine, but this is what I used. Shortly, we'll talk about the clear coat itself, but before we get there, I want to talk about more of the colors before we talk about sealing things in. So the next color that I'm going to talk about is literally the Rust-Oleum metallic finish. This is just the gold Rust-Oleum classic paint can. This stuff is fantastic. Now, I will say, a lot of times when you want a metallic finish, you need a really good black gloss undercoat that you can then throw a metallic paint on top of. This stuff doesn't actually need it. So I actually went technically overkill in this project by adding just gloss black to everything. It didn't hurt anything, but I could have just started with this and just coated everything in gold that I wanted gold, or just painted very small sections in black that I wanted to stay black. So, you know, hindsight being 2020, if I was to do this again, I might adjust how much black I end up putting on as the base coat of this, but this stuff is fantastic. I love this stuff, and this is a great base for the next color that we're going to talk about. All right, now I want to go from just having this metallic gold helmet to wanting to add some colors. And I was torn, because if you look at the pictures, it is more on the blue side to me than it is on the purple side of things. But this is just a little too blue. This is like maybe a dark blue beetle to me. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted the helmet to look like based on the pictures that I was looking at. So I played around with these two colors. What the colors themselves actually are is going to be these Duplicolor metal cast cans. So these are not traditional paints. This isn't like a regular spray paint. This is more of a tint. So you have to get a base coat of gold or silver, some sort of a metallic, and then you want to slowly dust these bad boys on top. You don't want to coat anything with heavy coats. You want to start with real light dusting. So in the reels that I've got playing right now, you're going to see that I'm literally doing a very light dusting. I'm not getting anything too crazy. I want to build up very little at a time. And it does take some patience, because when you first start applying this stuff, it doesn't really look like you're doing a whole lot. You don't really feel the instant gratification as you're applying it, but as you build it up, it is fantastic. But back to my dilemma. Which color do I use? Do I use the blue? Do I use the purple? Are they going to be wrong? The answer is, I played around and I used both. So what I ended up doing, I took some test pieces and I played around with the colors, and honestly, the first thing that I tried came out perfect. I tried a few other things too, but this was literally the way from the very beginning. So very happy with how that turned out. What I ended up doing was I basically just layered these on top of each other. Yep, so I would start with the blue, and I would coat the piece in the blue, and then I'd give it like a few minutes to just settle there for a second. And then I would apply a light dust coating. I would apply a light layer of this purple on top of the blue. And then I would give that, maybe 10, 15 minutes or something. And then I would go repeat the process again. So blue, purple, blue, purple, blue, purple. And the hue that I got out of this is just absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I was looking for. And I was super happy with how that came out, because I came up with that on my own. Because I love metal casts, I love working with this stuff, and I wanted to use this stuff, but they didn't have the color that I needed. So we played around with it, we did some experiments, and it worked out great. So when you're working on your project and you're trying to find that paint, take some time, do those tests. My very first, my Mando suit here, I had a bunch of spoons out. A lot of people will do this. You'll paint plastic spoons and see which colors you like. And sometimes the color that you think you're going to absolutely love, you hate it. So take your time and play around with things. But the first thing that I tried with this color combination came out beautifully, and that's what ended up being the final color for the helmet itself, and I couldn't be happier. Now the helmet does have a few portions that are actually more of a chrome color, and for that, I actually ditched the rattle cans and I decided to bust out the airbrushing kit. And with that airbrushing kit, I actually was just using this. This is a Molotow paint pen refill. So it's the Molotow liquid chrome mirror effect. This stuff is kind of expensive, especially for a tube like this. It does go a long way though, and this stuff is extremely shiny and reflective. Really fun to work with. A little odd in an airbrush, like you gotta make sure you're cleaning things out really quickly after you've used it to make sure that you don't absolutely gunk up your airbrush kit. Please be careful. Please don't ruin your airbrush kit and blame me for it. But if you wanna play around with something unique, try this. And last but certainly not least, once you have this beautiful painted prop, you wanna make sure that you can protect that paint job as much as is possible. For that, I used a Duplicolor 1K Extreme Gloss Finish. Again, the automotive store. O'Reilly's, you have too much of my money because I keep buying this stuff. But yeah, this is going to be somewhat similar to the way that you apply the metal cast. You don't want to go on too heavy in the beginning. It's kind of tempting to because you're really excited about getting this beautiful gloss finish, but you don't want to do that. In the very beginning, you want to just add really light dust coats to your prints, to your painted props, so that you can start to build up those first initial layers. And then after you've done that 2, maybe 3 times if you want to be extra safe, after that, that's when you're going to start applying the heavier coats. And you'll see in the clips, I do end up adding some heavier coats. And the heavier coats, I mean, when you can get to that place, it's absolutely worth it. Now, what I will say is you do have to trust the process, especially with the gold. The gold, you hit it with that clear coat, and you'll start to see that the gold kind of dims out a little bit. And it's a little bit scary. You see it and you're like, oh no, this beautiful thing, it was so beautiful, and now it's not the same and it's pulling back the colors a little bit. Trust me. Trust the process. Start with those light coats. Work your way up to the wet coat. Add that wet coat. You're probably going to feel like you're adding too much. Don't go too crazy with it, but definitely douse that thing and get it a good wet coat going without any drips. And then let it cure. Let it harden. Let it do what it's supposed to do. And once it does finally cure and harden and you know that you aren't going to be putting fingerprints in it, the results are absolutely stunning. So trust the process, play around with it. But Duplicolor 1K clear coat, the extreme gloss finish, this stuff is fantastic. I've used this on almost every prop that I have in my house, whether I was using this or the pearl finish or the matte finish. Duplicolor 1K clear, chef's kiss. Congratulations, you have officially made it to the point in the video in which we will wax on, wax off. Alright, well, if you've made it to this point in the video, then clearly you're enjoying yourself. And if you could do me a huge favor, like today's video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. That way you never miss it whenever we upload a new video here on the channel, because we do some fun, entertaining stuff here for you guys. Because we love you guys. So, thank you for your continued support. So, what exactly do I mean when I say that we're going to be going full Mr. Miyagi and going wax on, wax off with this project? I'm talking about this stuff right here. We're going to be using this brand of compound and car wax to buff and polish the helmet so that it comes out with this nice, beautiful, shiny, we're hoping for a bowling ball finish with this helmet. So let's go ahead and apply this stuff, put some elbow grease in here, and see what happens. Okay guys, we are so close to being wrapped up with this project. At this point, we have chosen our files, we've downloaded them, we've printed the pieces, we've sanded the pieces, we've filled in the gaps of these pieces, we have done a test fitting of the electronics to make sure that everything works properly. We stripped it down again, we painted everything, we clear coated everything. Now, there's nothing left to do but to stick everything back together and motorize this thing and then give it to my wife and say happy anniversary. So let's go ahead and do that and see how this bad boy looks with a finished paint job and the motorized kit, and work on getting this video uploaded just in time for our anniversary. Love you, boo. And here is the final product. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh my gosh, I am absolutely obsessed with how this paint job came out. I mean, just look at this helmet. Oh my gosh. The nanotech effect is very subtle, but I love the additional depth it gives to this paint job. Now, in the interest of keeping this video from getting any longer, I did go ahead and wax the helmet off camera, as well as obviously assembling, just putting the pieces back together. But you basically saw that as I was explaining how the motorization kit works, so I didn't feel like I had to record all of that and show you guys, because otherwise this video would be an hour long. Again, I couldn't be happier with how this helmet came out, and I can't wait to give this to my wife today by the time you're watching this video, as this will all be released at the same time that I'm giving her this helmet. Now, I can think of no better way to end off this video than by just dedicating this to my wife. Rachel, thank you so much for all of your love and support over the years. Thank you for being into nerdy things and supporting me and encouraging me in these really weird nerdy adventures that you somehow love and enjoy as well. Rachel, I love you. Happy anniversary. And remember, I love you 3000. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?